Settle down. Good evening, everyone. Connections with Cherokee County. That's what's important here. Goshen Valley Boys Ranch is nearby. It's actually in Waleska, just over the hill. And you got to see the Boy Scouts come in this very ceremony and open us up this evening. 5 of the children from my home made Eagle Scout. 3 of those children are still serving. 1 of them is a disabled veteran. At Goshen Valley Boys Ranch, I was the advocate scoutmaster that did the Boy Scout program to help the children of the Cherokee County Boys Ranch, which is Goshen Valley, get to the Scout program and achieve Eagle Scout. We managed to get 1 graduated inside of 2 years. I'm a graduate of Reinhardt University, an alumni. Yeah, Rhino, I know it. It's a joke. It's kind of funny. But you'll find that the service that I've given to the community does not just extend to Cherokee County. Our home is a group home, foster home for 15 years. We did care for 153 children, and we had a lot of fun with it. Of all those children, we have 8 of them still in uniform. I have 3 that are disabled veterans. We have 3 that are still in college and 1 that will commission this fall. My service as a combat veteran started off in Desert Shield, Desert Storm. In 14 more months, hopefully I'll be signing my letter for my 30 years of service, but I'll be welcome to resign my commission to take office as congressman. Sandra and I have been married for 24 years and 4 months. And through all this time, our service to our community has been something that we have focused on for what the community has done for us. My father, World War II veteran, the community took care of our family, gave us food stamps, helped us out, helped him out with his veterans care. We give back. William, Flying Tigers. Austin Collins was unfortunate. He went down with the Arizona. So we are a fighting family. Right now in Washington, D.C., you don't need politicians, you need fighters. I know the cost of freedom. I know what it costs to do things. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Cowan.
Yep. I'm Daniel Cowan. I'm running to be your congressman. I'm standing here today because of promises made. I will never vote for John Boehner. I will be a defender of the right of life. I will stand up to Barack Obama. I will cut spending in Washington, D.C. I will take our values to Washington, D.C. These are all words that Barry used 2 years ago, and they're all broken promises. Barry promised us one thing. Barry promised us one thing to get elected, and yet the very first thing he did when he got up to Washington was roll over to the establishment. Barry's going to claim that we're all misrepresenting things, but it's hard to make that claim when he mailed us all these promises 2 years ago, and the proof is in the public record. Voters are furious. They're furious at the establishment. We're seeing that today in the presidential election. Unfortunately, I believe Barry's become part of that problem. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm a businessman. I believe government should serve the people. I believe government should be limited. I'm Daniel Cowan, and I would very much appreciate your vote on the 24th.
Thank you. Now to Billy Davis.
Good evening. I'm Billy Davis. I'm running for Congress. And as of a little bit ago, I guess all of us but one up here will be voting for Donald Trump now that Mr. Cruz has dropped out. I'm not here tonight to bash any of the other candidates. Oh, I'm sorry. You may not vote for Trump. But I'm a businessman. I have many years of experience in business. Businessmen, I think, will do good in Congress. I intend to do what I can for the Veterans Administration, other agencies, education, our borders, and I'd like to have your vote May the 24th. We've got some good candidates up here. The one thing that separates me from the others is I'm paying my own way. Not a dime have I taken from anybody. Not a dime will I take from anybody. And I've committed to giving back my salary to the veterans when I get into Congress. Thank you. I'm Billy Davis. Appreciate your vote.
Mr. Law.
Yes, thank you. Great to be back here. Great to be at Cagle Farms. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you for staying the evening. My name's William Lobb, and I've been serving the community in the 11th District all my life. I was born and raised here in the 11th. After college, I started my CPA firm over 32 years ago, serving small business, serving individuals, keeping their fiscal house in order, serving my church, serving my children's school. I'm their coach, volunteer at the church. Serving the community through various nonprofits. The Pregnancy Aid Board I've been with a number of years, the House of Luke, Rotary. I'm here today because I'm sick and tired of politicians saying one thing and doing another. We know the story, Harry. We know how you did one thing, say one thing, and do another. I've got a successful accounting practice, church, school, community. I do what I say I'm going to do. My name is William Lobb. I'm running for the congressional seat. I would appreciate your vote on May 24th. Thank you.
Representative Loudermilk.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Especially, it's important that you be informed as a voter. Not get your facts off Facebook, but actually after the real things that happen. Look, when I got to Washington, D.C., a little over a year ago, those of you who know me know that I'm a very principled man. And when I got up there, the first thing I was told is, look, you're a freshman congressman. Your job is to sit down, shut up, and not make any waves. If you know me, that's not going to happen. Because I love this nation, and I don't recognize it anymore. I don't see the nation that I grew up with, and my grandchildren deserve better. So the first thing that I did, and I did when I campaigned, said I believe we need new leadership. So the first thing I did is I called for a meeting with John Boehner, and I went and sat in his office, and I told him I thought we needed new leadership. And when the Republicans met to select our nominee, just as we do in a primary, I would be voting against John Boehner, and that's exactly what I did. Unfortunately, you're not hearing that side of the story. But when we came to the floor and John Boehner was the Republican nominee, just like everyone said here, we're going to support Trump as the nominee, I voted again for John Boehner to block any chance of Nancy Pelosi being Speaker of the House. I think that's responsible government. You've heard attacks on my pro-life stance. Well, National Right to Life has given me a 100% rating and has endorsed me, as well as Georgia Life Alliance. Freedom Works recently said that Barry Loudermilk is the best of the next generation freedom fighters. Why? Because they're an organization that looks at the voting record and they look at what you've done in Congress, not just taking their facts off Facebook. Citizens Against Government Waste, you want to talk about cutting spending, said of 435 members of Congress, Barry Loudermilk is the best, the most effective in cutting spending. These are the watchdog groups that you trust, the most conservative groups. They are all lining up to stand with Barry. Why? Because they say that Barry Loudermilk has done exactly what he said he will do. These are the people that watch what you're doing, not just what you're saying. Honesty and integrity is the most important part of being in Congress and being in political office in anywhere.
Thank you.
I will stand with you as we take the nation back. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for Mr. Wilson.
Very good. Thank you for everyone who stayed this evening. Most importantly, let me just give you a little overview and background on myself. I served very early in Illinois as the insurance commissioner at a very early age. I then went on back to the private sector, and President Reagan had appointed me as chief appraiser for the state of Illinois. I understand about what fiscal responsibility is and how you grow a county and move a state forward. We have a responsibility in certain aspects to make sure that elements that you need as voters and constituency are met. Now, I'm hearing various things from associates here that are looking for your vote. We're living in a time that America is great. There's nothing that's odd or uneven about America right now. What we need to do is figure the enhancements in order to solve the problems within your community. Now, more importantly, there are three items in which I will share Additionally, in terms of where we need to be at this moment. One, living wages. Wages are very important. Without those, you can't do the things you need. Two, Medicaid expansion. Seniors don't need to figure out if they're going to eat or if they're going to take their medicine today. Those are issues that must be addressed. And last but not least, most importantly, we have to deal with a fair and equitable tax situation. The middle class cannot be the major burden bearing taxation. We need to have the very same elements that the top 1 or 5% have in this country. In order to do that, I understand the fiscal side of that. I'm a counsel and I'm an investment banker. I understand how you bring money from overseas and here to America so we grow businesses. I appreciate you and I look for your vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The first question is, agriculture is a big business in Cherokee. What are you doing or would you do in Washington to help keep it strong? We'll start with Mr. Davis.
I must admit, I don't know a whole lot about agriculture. The closest I came with grandparents that tried to make a living in the dirt in agriculture. But what I do know is how to listen. I can listen to you, you tell me what you need, and I'll go there to defend you, work for you, and do everything in my power to bring whatever's necessary back to District 11. I don't have anybody in Washington, any groups in Washington, to say that I'm a good guy or that I voted good. I just know what's in my heart and soul. My heart and soul is in the dirt of America. I'm a two-tour veteran of Vietnam. I believe in our vets. I believe in our people. I believe in Georgia. America's the greatest country there is. I'm willing to give back some things that I've been blessed with in my business life. And one of those things is that I'll support you to the very best of my ability.
Thank you. Mr. Lobb?
Yes, thank you. Agriculture is very important, and we need to make sure that we keep the system working. But I believe in a free market system, and reducing the taxes and reducing the regulations that are slowing down this growth is really what we're after in Washington. And as that, I will support that for Cherokee County and all of the 11th District. Thank you.
Representative Loudermilk.
Thank you. Agriculture is still one of the #1 industries and an economic driver in Georgia as well as in Cherokee County. Water is the most critical issue to agriculture that we're facing, water and taxation. I'm just curious, of all the opponents that have been criticizing me, how many of you would have voted against the omnibus? If you just raise your hand, that you have voted against the omnibus. You've been very critical about it. In the omnibus bill, when it came out of the Senate, there was a provision that would have taken the water from Georgia. Alabama would have taken our water back to the 1950 withdrawal level, which would have totally destroyed agriculture in Georgia. I took a difficult vote. Why? Because protecting the interest of the people of the 11th District is the most important thing. I had a person come earlier today, a farmer, and say, thank you for that vote. I know it was tough because there was a key provision for farmers dealing with taxation that would have put us under if we hadn't voted for that. Ladies and gentlemen, it isn't just about what you want to do, it's about protecting the people of your district. And these opponents just said they support agriculture, but they wouldn't have done it with their vote.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Wilson.
Well, thank you. As far as agriculture is concerned, I've worked very vehemently, most recently, with the Quentin Davis, who is the Director of Agriculture here for Georgia. I've been actively involved with not only a veterans hospital, that there is a center that's being built in Byron, Georgia. That's in the 2nd Congressional District. Having the experience as a chief appraiser, I understand what feasibility studies are and how you move them through in order to make things happen. Agriculture in Bartow and Cherokee is an area for enhancement. There are multiple facets in which the USDA is looking to do further guarantees, whether it be for residential housing or for expansion in other areas. With that in mind, we can still keep the ecosystem from the agricultural side and yet still develop without having issues, common household issues with infrastructure moving on your roadways. So I appreciate that with the USDA, and I look forward to doing further here in the 11th District. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Collins.
The weakness of Congress was just displayed, and it was displayed with water. No matter what takes place from the Senate to the House of Representatives from this point forward, all they have to do is sprinkle water on it, and Congress will roll over and get their belly rubbed. That's called the Wizard of Oz disease, because you melt the witch with water. Agriculture is under threat. It's not just in Cherokee County, it's around the United States, and it's not because of issues that are taking place in the United States, it's because of treaties that we're signing that we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage to. Any treaty that we sign that we put our farmers at a disadvantage to doesn't just hurt in Cherokee County, it hurts nationwide. England is making a vote next week on whether or not they're going to stay with the European Union, and one of the things that was brought up in their conversation is how are we going to trade with the United States with their agricultural laws? We're not even accepted there. That's on a small scale. If you can imagine that on a larger scale throughout the United States with the treaties that are coming down the pipe that we have an opportunity to do something about, but God help us if they sprinkle water on it.
Same question to Mr. Cowan.
Yes, ma'am. So agriculture, 1 out of every seven people in Georgia works in the agricultural business. It's about worth about $74 billion of our economy. I think chicken itself is one of the top 5 exports from Georgia. So obviously, agriculture is a very important business, and it's something that we have to take seriously. I want to also get a rebuttal, if I can, on the water comment. Am I allowed to do that now? Sure. So I'm a business guy. I actually served as head of strategy and also ran about half the P&L for a public company. It's actually the largest water and wastewater rehabilitation company in the U.S. So I understand water. I also know that Richard Shelby's amendment that he put in there wasn't specific about one basin, and it also was not a binding amendment to it. In fact, Richard Shelby voted against the omnibus bill. So it's good for us to sort of use Wizard of Oz math when it comes to making up reasons for $1.1 trillion in extra spending. But I think it's also important that we know our facts. And water is a fact that I know very, very well.
I've got a rebuttal also, please.
All right, 1 minute.
Yes, the water issue is very important, but we're rolling over on the water issue. The real root of the problem happened when we drew the boundaries between Georgia and Tennessee way back at the beginning of time, when the boundary was drawn short of the Tennessee River. This is where we should be negotiating. This is the representation that I'm going to take you to Washington, is negotiate with Tennessee, and let's go ahead and start drawing the water from there. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, I'll keep this short. Our congressman, I beat him up pretty bad last night, and I told myself I'm not going to do that tonight. But I must address this thing about the bill that he voted on. In voting for that bill, he also provides funding for Planned Parenthood. And I don't care how much water we win or lose, I'm just dead set on not killing babies. And I'm sorry, I told Mr. Loudermilk last night, it's never right to do wrong to get a chance to do right.
All right, Mr. Representative Loudermilk, 1 minute.
I'd like to thank you. And again, this is again, people getting their facts from Facebook, not from reading. How many of you have read the omnibus? Have you read the omnibus?
I read the
But did you read the omnibus?
I read the water.
Obviously you didn't, because we actually banned any federal funding for abortion in the omnibus. Because it's impossible to block the funding for Planned Parenthood. 80% of that is in the mandatory budget. You can't do it. Why did National Right to Life give us a 100% rating? Because they knew that you could not block Planned Parenthood funding in the omnibus. In fact, the Congressional Research Service says there is no appropriation for Planned Parenthood in the omnibus. There isn't. There's block grant money given to Health and Human Services, which Planned Parenthood can apply for. This is the thing, when you say that you would vote against the omnibus, look, there's good and bad in every bill, so when they come up and they start saying these things, they're being disingenuous, because I can say the same thing. You're not pro-life because you would have voted against a ban on federal funding for abortion. All I'm asking, guys, is to be honest with your campaigning. Don't get your facts from Facebook. Look,
All
it's
right,
almost...
thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
We're going to move on
Please
to
send
the
me a
next
copy of-
question. We're going to move on to the next question, please. Mr. Locke, we'll start with you on this. What can be done about our national debt?
Taxes and budgets, it's what I deal with every day. I've been doing it for over 32 years. Look, all you need to do is budget and spend the money that we have available to spend. This Planned Parenthood is a perfect example. It's a nonprofit that started in 1926, a great program for women for many years. In 2016, Planned Parenthood is a dinosaur. We have free market solutions to dealing with Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood needs to take their escrow take their funds that they have available that are in an escrow account and start using their own funding to operate their nonprofit and let their nonprofit operate as a true nonprofit. Having the federal government subsidize 41% of the program is crazy.
All right, thank you. Representative Loudermilk, same question.
Look, the national debt is the most dangerous national security threat that we're facing. Terrorism is real. The threats against America is real. Iran is a true enemy of the United States, but yet we cut a deal with it. But still, the national debt's the greatest security risk that we have, because within 5 years to 6 years, the interest payment on our debt will exceed our entire national security budget. We have to deal with it. The only way you can deal with it is cut your spending and reduce waste. We have trimmed down just about as much as you can out of the discretionary budget, which is the only budget that Congress has control over. The rest is in the mandatory spending. We have to be able to reach out and do that. The only way we can do that is through a constitutional amendment, which I have introduced, the Balanced Budget Amendment, which not only would control spending, but it would once again restore Congress control over the budget, because we only control about 35% of our spending. That's what we need to do. This is the type of thing that we should be focused on here, is talking about these type of important issues. And unfortunately, people just want to go and bash other people. Let's talk about the issues, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Well, just recently, the House has approved $93 billion for defense in multiple areas. Of that, 10B has been allocated for veteran services through the choice arena for veterans care. Understanding that as a veteran myself, I served in the 82nd. That makes sense. There are elements of this budget in order to reduce that we can't just automatically give an instant pin to say, I've never met a bill I didn't like. That we have to have some discretionary. Understanding the fiscal side of this, there are ways that we can not only curtail the budget, but we can bring it in line. But we have to look at line item issues in order to address that. And being there, I have that capability in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Two things that were just brought up. You shrugged your responsibility. It's not my responsibility to read the bill. I hired you to do the job. Your first excuse when you came out, you said you had to vote for the omnibus bill because you had to follow the Jeffersonian honor code, which means you gave up the vote for the district to represent the House of Representatives. I did not get to respond to that a while ago. I have been asked 2 questions, did not get to respond. And you assumed 2 things. You said all of us up here would raise our hands. You didn't look at the end of the table, you ignored me. You didn't see your second question as well as you ignored me there as well. That is what the problem is. You're not paying attention. In regards to this, there are 2 issues. It's not what the problem is in Washington, D.C. that they're addressing. It's what needs to be addressed and what's not getting done. I care that the opportunity to represent individuals with integrity would come forward, not represent the House of Representatives, not represent the 100% of special interest groups, and not to represent special groups that come forward and say, we'll give you extra money for your campaign if we say what you want you to say, and we'll take care of you. Not interested. Please. You know me. Don't ignore me.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan, national debt.
Our debt's approaching $20 trillion. That's trillion with the T. And absolutely, I agree, that is our #1 national security issue right now. But I'm going back to my civic lessons, and I'm thinking when I studied the Constitution, I don't remember the framers writing in there that 80% of all of our expenditures are not within government's control to influence. I don't remember that. In fact, I think that's probably an easy answer for us to say. I don't remember it sitting in the Constitution. On the other side, so how do you really get to control the debt? Well, first of all, as a business person, I agree we've got to balance budgets, but it starts with we got to have a budget. We haven't had an effective budget in the last 7 years in Congress. In fact, we had one in the last 7 years. If you don't have a budget, personally, professionally, you go bankrupt. Guess what? Our country's going bankrupt because we don't have leaders who will stand up and actually budget.
Thank you. And Mr. Davis, the same question. What can be done about our national debt?
I'll keep it very simple because the question's been answered a few times. I'd take the $1 trillion Mr. Loudermilk voted to give Iran on the president's budget and put it toward the national debt.
I've got my microphone. Again, we addressed this yesterday. I stood up and opposed the Iranian nuclear deal that you keep saying that the Republicans continue to, that you keep saying that the Republicans voted for. We opposed the Iranian nuclear deal. Again, you guys need to stay off Facebook for a little while and start actually reading the truth. Reading the truth. I understand you want to be in Congress. You want to be in Congress really bad, and so you're willing to do or say anything. But the people out here deserve better than that, guys. These people deserve truth. They deserve honesty. They deserve integrity.
Right.
And that's why
you've got all these people running against you.
Look,
All right, let's not talk among ourselves. Let's just answer the questions. This is the next question. This was asked last night also, but I think it's really important to people, and it's been sent up here again this evening. And that is it possible for the hospital building that's being vacated by Northside Hospital to become a VA hospital for this area? And Representative Loudermilk, that question goes to you first.
yeah, we actually addressed this during our campaign, as we thought that this was a very great opportunity for us to provide other services to provide hospital services to the veterans. Look, the truth is, illegals coming across this border and refugees coming to this nation get better medical treatment than those who fought for our nation. I'm a veteran. My dad fought in World War II. My brother fought in Vietnam. I'm an Air Force veteran of the Gulf War. And I know how deplorable the conditions are in the Veterans Administration. But being in the IT services businesses for 20 years, being a small business owner, I can tell you that sometimes computers get so virus infected that all you can do is wipe and reload them. And that's what needs to happen with the VA. We're actually working right now on reforming the entire VA system so we don't give substandard care. I want to give a card, a voucher to every veteran so you can choose what hospital you go to, what doctor you go to, and you get the care and the treatment that you deserve for standing up and defending our freedom.
All right, Mr. Wilson.
Well, this goes back to what I shared very early on. Navicent Hospital chain, or the entity, they operate multiple hospitals throughout Georgia. In Byron, Georgia, right now, there is a facility that is being put in place. It's a medical campus. What I introduced to the USDA is they are backing that funding for that facility to go up. One of the key components is they will build out the top floor for veterans. I had a conversation many months ago with the Advents Hospital in South Cobb area in Cobb County. So once again, we're back to that same element. And I think this time, collectively, with some infinite wisdom and some phone calls made, I think we can turn this current hospital into one that will take care of veterans. So that's something that I truly will be on board with. And since I'm speaking with the right folks down at the VA, I think we can get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Collins.
Working in facilities, I hate to see hand-me-downs. The public school systems get hand-me-downs. They get schools that have been around for hundreds of years. I would hate to think that my daughter and my sons would have to be treated in a used hospital. I would think that the best option and the most extensive option for long-term goals for our veterans is to have a new facility in its place, one with new oxygen lines, something that would be dedicated towards specific research for the brain injuries, like for my daughter, or for handicap issues for missing limbs. High technical research, specific research designed to support the special needs of veterans that are in special needs care. Yesterday, by the way, my son got notification that he's now being treated at a civilian hospital because the VA could no longer treat him. There are other options. I do think that the opportunity to build something new and not have a hand-me-down would be the best option.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan.
It's important that we honor our veterans and live up to our commitment. But we just talked about $20 trillion was our biggest national security risk and issue. I don't believe the government is capable of efficiently managing a hospital. They don't efficiently manage much. And it surely would do us no favors in the budget, in the debt, for us to add brick and mortar to the VA system. The answer for me, and this is a business answer, is simple. The price of care is cheaper in the private sector, and the quality of care is higher. What we should do in Congress is we should privatize it. We should give our veterans who served for us the ability to go to the private brick and mortar that we already have, that all of us go to, and get treated. We can sell off the infrastructure we have in the VA and fund a lot of it. And we're also going to address this spending issue that Congress is affected with as part of it. Our job is to limit government and make it efficient. The VA and expanding it is not creating efficiency.
Thank you. And Mr. Davis.
I actually agree with my three colleagues here, mostly. I don't know about vouchers, I've not studied that. I think that we should build facilities, new facilities for our veterans, and I also think that we need to privatize. As a veteran who has used the VA hospital for almost 50 years, I've seen how it's deteriorated. I think it's deteriorated because people get used to doing the same thing over and over, and that's bureaucracy. I believe that with what's going on with the servicemen, that it's exponential now for the VA. We have to start over again while the VA continues running. Build a new hospital. Let the vets go to Kennestone. Let them go to Grady. Let them go to where they need to go to get care. Honestly, people, there's some things we can afford to do, and that's to take care of our heroes.
And Mr. Law.
Yes, thank you. Certainly taking care of our veterans is the #1 priority in keeping America strong. The hospital that is available now, we should use what we have. We need to be fiscally responsible and take our assets that we have available to us and use them. And putting a free market solution to the VA hospital and other government programs is really what we're after. We're trying to save money here, not just spend and create more issues and a bigger government. So a free market solution, and since we do have the facility available, yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. And now we're going to move to closing statements. These are short, just 1 minute, and we're going to start with Mr. Wilson first and move down the table, ending with Mr. Collins.
Well, this is a change. Normally W is at the end, so this is wonderful. Look, I'll be very brief. Let's be very candid. Common sense is not so common right down in Washington. Now, I've served in various capacities. Most recently, I've served 2 terms as the 11th Congressional Chair for the Democratic Party. So I understand the issues that are going on here. This is nothing new. What I am asking you to do is take a moment and let's think about where we're going. We share the same values. Parties are not an issue. It's all about what our value system is and how we get there, folks. We talked about VA issues. There are ways we can go with the VA for Veterans Choice. That is available. So let's utilize some of these that are in hand right now, and let's stay fiscally responsible. I ask for your vote on May 24th. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Loudermilk.
Again, thank you for being here. And you know, I came here tonight ready to talk about some issues that are very important to Americans. We've gone down the wrong path a long way. I've become known as in Congress as one of the fighters. Look, I took the fight to change leadership. When we weren't successful in removing Boehner in the first vote, I helped form the House Freedom Caucus, and today, Boehner is not only Speaker, he's out of Congress, and my boot print is on his backside as he left office. And we brought new leadership in. We are addressing issues every day, dealing with national security. I'm on a counterterrorism task force, and we needed to talk about terrorism here. We need to talk about refugees coming into the nation and the threats against America. We need to talk about cutting the budget. But unfortunately, we almost sound like a bunch of presidential candidates that everyone wants to talk about how bad everybody else is. You sent me to Washington to fight, and I fought. I've done everything that I said I would do, and that's why the majority of the conservative watchdog think tanks have gotten behind me. Standwithbarry.com. I would appreciate your vote on May 24th, and I will continue to represent you with integrity and honesty.
Thank you. Mr. Locke.
Yes, thank you. 30 years in private practice in a CPA firm, serving the community, listening to you tell me what your problems are, why your business is not doing well, how I can help you build your business, listening to you individually talking about how to help you get your house fiscally in order. I'm not trying to bash anybody, I'm just trying to tell the truth. And the truth is, we need somebody that's going to do what they say they're going to do in Washington, like I have done for so many years. Pregnancy aid, I live pregnancy aid. I work at a center for them. I volunteer my time there. I volunteer my church time. I serve you in the community. I'm the best candidate because I work with each and every one of you every day. We really need to turn things around in Washington. And 3 weeks from today, when you go to the poll, I need you to turn that around. I need you to turn the poll around. When you go to the poll, turn that around. LLOP, LOP.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Davis.
I'm married to my first sweetheart, 53 years tomorrow. Happy anniversary, honey. I have 3 grandchildren in this county from beginning up into high school. I'm a Christian. Without a doubt, I'm a pro-athlete. I'm a veteran. I did 2 tours in Vietnam. I'm a businessman. I've hired thousands of people across America from north to south to east to west. I don't ever remember hiring anybody illegal. If I did, it was totally unknown. I bleed red, white, and blue. I'm an American. I pay my own way to Washington to give back something from this great country that's given to me. I thank you very much for having us.
Mr. Cowan.
Barry, after you voted for John Boehner, according to your own disclosure, you accepted a $5,000, which is the maximum donation possible by law, from John Boehner's PAC. So to me, it sounds like you might have given him a handshake rather than kicked him as he was going out the door. Look, I think all of us can agree Congress is broken. And I think, unfortunately, I think that our representation here in the 11th District is part of the problem. He might be fighting, but I think he's fighting the wrong people. Look, if you think that our current Congress is effective, if you think career politicians are the answer, then by all means, vote to re-elect him. But if not, I would very much appreciate your vote on May 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Collins.
We did come here this evening to discuss important issues, and treason has a name, and terrorism was discussed up here as well. Anytime the Constitution is sacrificed and surrendered for House rules or votes, it is a disgrace. There is nothing more important than the Constitution. It is representation. It is not leadership. It is representation. The moment you surrender your vote to special groups, the moment you surrender your vote to PACs, the moment you surrender your vote to the House of Representatives rules or the Jeffersonian Honor Code is the moment that the Constitution has been betrayed. It is a fighting issue, and I am a fighter, and my families are fighters, or my children are fighters. A true fighter doesn't walk away from the fight. A true fighter will finish the fight. You send me to Washington, D.C., I'll finish it. And I'll fight, I'll dig a trench, and I'll dig in. But understand, when we go there together. You're not going to send me there alone. I expect to hear from each and every one of you. Hayden Collins for Congress. Thank you very much, and thank you for this evening.
Thank you, candidates. Let's show them our appreciation.